Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. It is time for the Books That Make You show, and I'm your host, Desiree Duffy. And today we're talking about books that make you create your own podcast. It's like we're pulling back the curtain, exposing the third wall, calling this show out for what it is. We're a podcast and a radio show for our friends listening on mystar95.com. And we developed the Books That Make You show to spotlight authors and books. Well, today we have an author of a book on podcasting. Ryan Slate joins us. Now, his book is called Unremarkable to Extraordinary: Ignite Your Passion and Go from Passive Observer to Creator of Your Own Life. And he is also the host of Create Your Own Life podcast, which studies the highest performers in the world. And he also studied literature at Oxford University as well. He holds a master's in early Roman Empire propaganda. I love that. From Seton Hall University. And his podcast was named the #1 podcast to listen to by Inc. magazine in 2019, as well as he is a top 40 under 40 recipient by Podcast Magazine in 2022. Jeremy, hi, welcome to the show.
Hey, Desiree, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I love it. I love it. You have the setup, you have the mic, you got the headset, you got noise cancellation. Like it's amazing talking to a fellow podcaster who's also written a book.
There's like 150 pieces of soundproof foam in this room too, by the way. So it's like I'm a little bit of a maniac. I know we got going a little bit late in this, which doesn't usually happen to me, by the way. So I'm like, what? Things don't break on me. What's happening?
I hear you. It happens. And it just goes to show you, when you have your own show, when you have your own podcast, you can have the best equipment and everything's in place. And then all of a sudden the computers start taking over and AI just, takes over the world and we're all screwed. But
Skynet.
I know, right? So tell us about your book. Give us the lowdown if you could.
Yeah, I started writing this back in 2019 because when I started my podcast back in 2014, the whole idea was I wanted to eventually write a book. And I always told myself like the timing wasn't right. I wasn't ready. I didn't have enough life experience, whatever it may be. And I finally got to a point where I met a book coach that was kind of like, you've been talking about this for years. Like it's time to finally do something. I started putting something together in 2019. In fact, I wrote the entire book. It was about 70,000 words back then. And I ended up throwing it out because it didn't feel right. It didn't sit right. It didn't communicate what I wanted it to communicate. And I actually rewrote the entire book towards the middle and the end of 2020. And then we kind of went through the publishing, editing process and everything like that. But for me, I really wanted to get down who I was, what I stand for, what I've been through. And I really just didn't feel like that first book really got it, because I'm somebody that I don't know how to explain this. I'm not very life coachy. I'm not very fluffy. To me, I want, to know exactly how to do something. I want to know how to do it quickly. And I want to know from somebody that's done it. And that's kind of what I wanted to provide from a lot of the people that I've had conversations with that I talk about in this book, how to go from unremarkable, because we're all essentially unremarkable, but it's what we do that makes us extraordinary. And I wanted to show that from people that, in my viewpoint, have at least reached their version of extraordinary.
Yeah, that's a through line. I feel a lot of times when I talk to authors, there's this moment they realize that it takes a team or a village to help in that writing process. And there are a lot of mechanics and there's, certain structures and things. So yes, it is your writing and it's a combination of your heart and your soul, and your vision and everything as an author. But when you have a great editor to help you with the content and the development, and somebody to help you focus on a theme or, kind of get into the nitty gritty, I think that's when really awesome books can happen.
But I think even from that perspective, I think the thing that's really important too is an editor is really important, but at the same time, you do have to stand up for yourself in the editing process too, right? To make sure that where you're going with this kind of conveys what you wanted it to convey too. So I think that's also something that's really important too.
Yeah, very, very true. And sometimes you will see that, especially if an author is with a publisher and they're churning out books. That's their
Hmm.
business, right?
Yep.
Churning it out, and sometimes that author vision can get trampled a little bit. Did you have something like that happen to you?
I did in the first round of edits, but I kind of came back and was like, like this is why I'm doing this part and this is why it's important. And that's actually why it's said like that. So like part of that were things of the way my brand communicates that the editor didn't quite understand, which is important, I think, sometimes because somebody that doesn't, kind of drink your Kool-Aid needs to be able to look at your stuff and be like, well, this makes sense to me. This doesn't make sense to me, whatever it is. So I wanted to kind of make sure that a lot of those concepts at least stayed true to the form I wanted them in. Even if, the English needed to be a little bit better, which is where I really needed help.
Yeah. I hear you. We all do. We all do. No shame in that. Everybody needs an editor when it comes to that. Okay, so tell us about the concepts in your book. Let's dig into it a little bit deeper.
Yeah, when I look at it, I think that life experience can be like one of our greatest teachers. Frankly, like if you look at it, there's kind of this huge gap between what we learn in school and what we apply. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of get stuck in that gap and they don't find their way through it. And when you look at people that are extraordinary, a lot of them take total responsibility for their education and the implementation of that education. There was a concept hundreds of years ago, and we kind of see it still in the trades like plumbers and things like that. And that's the idea of an apprenticeship. Finding somebody that's really good at something and working for them under a period of time so you can either discern if you like it, discern if you don't, or learn how to do it really well. So one of the concepts is understanding you need to take total responsibility for your own education and own ability to do something. For some people, that's school. For a lot of people I've spoken to, maybe they have that degree or maybe they don't have that degree, but it's what they've actually done in their life, which is a big deal. And they've worked at it and they've practiced it. I know Malcolm Gladwell calls it 10,000 hours. I think that's a little arbitrary because I think there's a lot of people that can do it less and there's a lot of people that need 20,000, right? But it's just to say there's a lot of application that a lot of people are missing. So I think that's one huge concept. Another is the idea of adversity. And when people look at adversity, they're going to approach it a few different ways. You're going to have somebody that runs towards it. You're going to have somebody that runs away from it. And you're going to have somebody else that sits on the couch, observes it, and says, I'm going to keep, drinking my beer or whatever it may be. That's an awesome mug, by the way. Mother of Dragons. And there's those different ways somebody's going to approach something. And when you look at adversity is actually kind of this thing that's transformational, right? It can make you who you're supposed to be on the other side of it. It's almost like a blacksmith's furnace or a forge or something like that. And it can make you be able to take more, do more, be more, but you have to be willing to go through that process. And somebody that's extraordinary understands it and they look at it and they're able to work through it and they're able to become who they want to be on the other side. Like somebody that really makes me think of this is Tom Brady. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, even though I'm not a Bucks fan or a Patriots fan. But he's somebody that he was barely played in high school, barely played in college, was drafted in the 7th round, was an afterthought, but he always prepared and worked and always brought everything to the table. And because of that, when his opportunity arose, he became the greatest at what he did. So I think it's kind of this idea of when your work meets with the opportunity. So that's another really big one. There's a bunch more, but I don't know if you want to have me pause before we go from here. But
this is great. This is great. And yeah, we kind of got a theme going on with the fire. This is part of your book and Mother of Dragons, and you're going back to analogies like forging and trades. And I'm just curious, because of your background and what you studied with the Roman era, are you looking at mindsets? Because people are people, right?
Yeah.
At different times in history, we're still kind of doing the same thing. So that mindset seems like it's a universal type thing, right?
Well, here's the thing too, is I found early in kind of my business career, I read a lot of personal development books. And eventually I kind of got to the point where I'm like, they're really all saying the same thing. And what I actually started doing is reading a lot of biographies and autobiographies and things like that. And it's been super interesting to learn from people's life experience because you see how somebody engages with something, how they live their life, how they do things. And that to me is where the real value is. I guess being a historian, I'm always interested in the story of people. Mm-hmm. And because when you look at history, like, yes, there's events and there's things like that. But if you understand people, you understand a lot of why things happen, right? You look at Emperor Caligula. was the first Roman emperor to be taken out by the Praetorian Guard and have his stuttering uncle Claudius put in his place. And because of that, basically they changed history because this guy was crazy. Had he been okay and able to do his job, things would have went differently. So when you look at it, understanding people and different things like that is pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. Let's dig into one of the concepts in your book, PR versus marketing. And I work in this space all the time. Can you talk about PR versus marketing and how they're different, how they're the same?
So you'll love this, by the way, because this is the thing that frustrates me. Because I think when a lot of people look at it, they think PR and marketing are the exact same thing. And frankly, it's because everybody wants everything to be marketing, right? They don't want to understand, like, when you're looking at public relations, public is a type of audience and relations is how you relate to them. So it's that know you, like you, and trust you factor, right? So somebody has to know who you are, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. You could be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing and all these different things, but if they don't know you, like you, and trust you, they can't take the next step with you. So when you look at any business, it essentially has three real processes that work with it. They have the public relations, marketing, and sales. If you're not selling, something's wrong with marketing. If marketing's not converting, something's wrong with public relations. So it's that know you, like you, and trust you factor, whereas marketing is more the process of promoting that, right? But public relations, you're getting the people that need to know you, like you, and trust you to understand you so that they want to make a decision with you. And I think that's what's really, really vital, is understanding that you could be the most expensive, you could be the least available, whatever it is, but if you're well known and you're a celebrity, people are going to pay you. And I think that's the difference, is you can't just think, oh, how many leads did I get? How many impressions did I get? Because you know what? If your message is terrible and it's to the wrong people, it's not going to do anything. Do you find yourself talking about this a lot, Desiree? I get so frustrated about like that core concept because people, they want to treat everything as marketing. You're like, all right, this number of people listened, this number of people should opt into my message, this number of people should buy from me. And it's like, what if number one, it's the wrong place? What if number two, it's the wrong audience? And what if number three, they don't trust you? There's so many variables, but PR is vital.
Yeah, yeah, I'm right there with you. You're speaking my language, Jeremy. And I say it all the time. I go back to integrated marketing. All of these things work together. It's integrated. It has to be integrated. And when it is, then it can be successful.
Yeah.
We have that happen all the time. The other saying I like, it's very old timey, is we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. Once they get to that product, that book, that call to action, everything we do on social media and PR and marketing, if you want to give it that umbrella, everything we do, it all depends on that conversion as well.
Yep.
And that's where you're calling it sales advertising. That's where that comes in.
It's just so wild, though, that so many people have this misunderstanding. And, I don't know if it's other people's marketing. I don't know if it's education. I don't know where the disservice comes from, but it's really just an education problem. If people truly understood how important PR is in their strategy to actually making an impact, it'd be a lot easier for people to make an impact.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. I'll throw branding in there too, because I look at branding as a function of PR, and it's foundational. Once you got the brand, the message, what are you saying? What's the goal there? Then everything else builds on top of that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love your book too. So can we talk about, within your book, you talk about positioning yourself as the go-to in your space. Can you unpack that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, because when you look at it, right, this goes back to what we've been talking about here in the conversation we've been having the last few minutes, is if you are the expert, if you are the one to go to, people are going to make that choice over another. And I think, frankly, one of the best places to do that right now is the podcast world, because it's putting you in a position to have long form conversations. We really haven't had a medium like this in any other places, right? Like, I'm an old time radio person. Like, I love listening to Paul Harvey and things like that for a really long time. I don't know if you remember Paul Harvey, but he was one of my favorite.
I do. I'm an old time radio person too.
So like, I love the nighttime radio, right? Where people have these shows where they talk for hours. You don't get that during the day. And I think podcasting has kind of taken this and built on it. And we're getting these long form conversations where you're really getting to know people, and to put yourself in the place to become the go-to. You have the conversations with the right people. You talk about the right things with the right people. You're in the right places. And I think right now podcasting is kind of creating this position There's kind of two roads on that, right? And that's having your own show where you interview people who are, big in your space, but at the same time, going in other podcasts where you get in front of audiences that already exist. So to me, right now, the way to position yourself as go-to in your space is to talk to people on podcasts, because you're getting, 80% of someone's attention, I think was Apple Podcasts, last stat they gave out of what people are actually listening to of an episode. So that's a really, really big deal. If somebody's listening to you for 30, 45 minutes, you're getting a long time. Now, I don't know about those 3-hour shows if they're listening to that, because I'm in and out on those myself. But, if they're listening to you for that long, they're able to build a relationship with you and actually know you.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So let's get down to brass tacks. What are some tips that you have for people if they want to start a podcast? Because that's daunting too.
Yeah.
You're an early adapter, 2014. Bravo to you for starting, in the very early days of podcasting.
I was a super fan my whole life, though. So Adam Curry, the Podfather, right? The guy that started the first podcast. I listened to his daily source code back in the day. So wow. I've been a nerd. I can't explain it.
I think you just did. I get it. So what is it? So there's so many people out there who are not nerds, and they're technologically a little bit maybe not as adaptable. It's really scary sometimes to even when you start talking about some of the mechanics of it. What tips do you have for people that are just starting out?
Well, I think the mechanics matter a little bit less than people think they do, right? You don't have to have the best mixer, the best mic, the best lighting, whatever it may be. And I guess if you're me, sometimes you should restart your computer once in a while. The technology isn't as big of a deal as people think it is. What actually matters is the positioning. The positioning is kind of the first place you should start, because a lot of times there's people that see a model in the podcast world and they create that exact same show. And you have to look at it when there's no reason for somebody to come to you over someone else. They're not going to listen to you. So you have to figure out, why are you different? What's different about you? What do you discuss? What's important? And what's the smallest niche audience you want to talk to, right? You're doing a great job by saying, I'm talking to authors and we're talking about, just in this area. There's a lot of people I talk to authors, I talk to this person, I talk to that person, I talk to this person. There's not a reason or a particular group of people to come to you. So that's actually primary before you're worrying about the technology and things like that, is who do you serve? How do you serve them? What is different about you? Because if you're not able to differentiate, you promote everybody else that does what you do. So that's kind of the thing you have to think about up front. And I really recommend, if you're starting a podcast, starting an interview show for a couple different reasons. Number one, you get to network with some really cool people that, frankly, wouldn't give me the time of day otherwise, other than having a podcast, but you get to meet them, and it's really cool. And I've gotten speaking engagements that way. I've gotten lots of business opportunities that way. That's one side of it. The other side of it is the positioning you gain. Positioning is kind of this concept in the branding world of taking something people are already familiar with and comparing yourself for it or against it. The one I hate, but the one that's used the most, is we're the Uber of blank. Apply it to your industry. So what you're doing is you're grabbing the spot in people's head and they say, oh, I know what Uber is. Okay, I know what they are. So you're able to grab positioning by interviewing people that others already know, like, and trust. And that actually helps you because you're seeing with them. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. So that helps you to kind of grab that positioning that way. So to me, those are the things I would worry about. Yeah, sure. Have a decent microphone because it matters enough, because people need to be able to listen to you. But the technology aspects of it are so much less vital than who do you serve, how do you serve them, and how are you different?
Can you tell us about how Command Your Brand grew by 71% during what most considered a down economy? Can you talk about that?
Well, we did exactly what I talk about in the book, which is running towards adversity, not away from it. And when you look at it, the world changed a lot. Right? It changed vastly, and we're still dealing with ramifications and changes. I just read something yesterday. I don't know if you saw this. Apple demanded all their employees come back to work, and most of them were like, no, we're not doing that. So they still want to work from home. So we've always been a virtual company at Command Your Brand since we started in 2016. So because of that, we were ahead of the game in a lot of ways. And when the pandemic hit, the thing that we actually did is, when everybody else was letting people go, we started hiring. The reason being is I could now hire people that I couldn't get before. Right? I got people that are really great at what they do, but they work for somebody else. Mm-hmm. So that was the first thing we started doing. The second thing we did is we looked at every single process in our company and we said, where are we not doing a good job? Where are we wasting? What can we do better? So we looked at every single process we did and we perfected it. And we did better training, we did better documenting, and because of that, we were able to do, kind of an excellent job of having the right people with the right way of doing things. And that kind of put us ahead of the game when a lot of companies were retreating, and it helped us to grow. It's interesting because I don't feel like it's this like special thing other than we were, advanced, we didn't retreat, and we managed to try and do a better job at it.
The people equation is so
Yes,
important.
it's vital.
It really is. So if you could take your book and hand it to one person, one people, please don't say Oprah. Everybody says Oprah. You cannot say Oprah. But if you could hand your book to one person in the world right now, living, we're going to go with living people, who would it be and why?
Oh, one person in the world? Tom Brady, man.
Because call back to Tom Brady. I love it.
I everybody that I've talked about in the book, I've interviewed other than Tom Brady. I had to read a lot of books to be prepared for that. But the thing I think that's really interesting about him, right? Sure, he's 6'4". Okay, so he's a big athlete. I'm 5'7". But if you look at him, he doesn't have a strong arm. He runs like he's got a piano on his back. So there's nothing particular about this guy that says he should be a 7-time Super Bowl champion and the greatest quarterback of all time, other than he worked hard. He showed up every day. He watched extra film. He took extra reps. He did everything he could to be better. And to me, that's what it means to be extraordinary. To be extraordinary is to be an ordinary individual that knows you have to put in the work, knows you have to put in the time, and knows you have to stretch yourself to become the best. So to me, it would be Tom Brady.
I love it. I love it. We'll put.
I mailed it to him too, by the way. I didn't hear anything back though.
I was going to say, Tom Brady, if you're listening, talk to Jeremy. You got to go on his show.
I mailed it to him, take care of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because his agent wouldn't give me an address, so we didn't. I don't know if we got anywhere with that.
Okay. Well, you never know. That's the cool thing about this medium too. Is you put something out there, you're networking, you're talking to people, and the next thing you know, things happen in unexpected ways. And I think that's true of PR just in general.
Yes.
We do the book fest and we sponsor the book fest. And one of the very early authors that was part of the book fest, he emailed me a couple of days ago saying that led to somebody, getting on his email list. And the next thing you know, he now has, fingers crossed, an option for his book. So you just don't know how things can kind of relay and work out. And I think that's part of the magic of podcasting and doing what we do too.
Well, and it goes back to what we've been talking about with PR, right? Like you couldn't trace the ROI on that, but if you didn't do it, you'd know it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference is when you don't do PR, that's when you know you need to do PR. But then when you're doing it, we're like, well, where's the ROI? What's the reach? Whatever it is. Because you know what? It just has to be one person or one group or one event organizer or whatever it is. And that's the change.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Jeremy, is there another book down the road? Do you have the bug now? Are you going to give us something else in the future, or what's down the road?
Not at the moment, because there's kind of there was this big shakeup in the publishing world, and actually our rights got acquired by another publisher, so they're actually doing a republication of the book of about 6 months. So we're in kind of this interesting approach right now, and we're doing some modifications and edits, but I'm actually really excited because it's a bigger opportunity than we started with. So our rights actually got bought by a different publisher.
Oh, congratulations. So it sounds
Thank
like
you.
that's a good thing then.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
So how about with your show in the world of podcasting? What are you looking forward to in the future?
I'm just looking forward to where this medium's going, because I feel like people like you and me we're really kind of in the forefront of something really cool happening. Because if you look at it, there's been iterations of podcasts over the years, right? There, when it started out, there was a few shows out there, and back in the days when I was listening to, there were a lot of audiobooks in the public domain, and those were podcasts, and you'd be like, oh, LibriVox, yes, I like that one. And that then became these 30 to 20, 25 to 30-minute shows where people ask everybody the same questions and whatever it may be. And then it's kind of developed now into these long form, 30 minutes, an hour and a half conversations. So I think we're kind of on the verge of something new and different we haven't seen before, right? Because if you look at it, a lot of TV, it's clips, right? Unless you're the host of a radio show, it's a lot of clips and segments, right? So you're able to get a kind of a long form conversation and something that you really get to understand people. So I think we're on kind of the verge of something new. So I'm just really excited for where it's going.
Yeah, and the audio component of it, you're right. As a radio person, you understand how that becomes the theater of the mind and how it connects with us. And nowadays, as people are consuming things in an auditory way much differently, it's not just that they're stuck in their car and they have to listen to the radio, right?
Choosing to.
Yeah, they're choosing to. And because we have all our devices, we can listen to podcasts while we're working out, while we're cooking in the kitchen. We can tell our devices, our home devices, Alexa, play this for me. And you're right, because we can segment it. We have that short form for really quick stuff or standing on the corner waiting for the bus to the long form stuff. I know I love listening at night. That's what puts me to bed at night. I'll listen to podcasts and I'll listen to stories, audiobooks.
That kept me from doing video for the first 5 years of my podcast because I liked the magic of radio. In a world where, there's like kind of this very Orson Welles thing about it, or, a very I go back to Paul Harvey is one of my favorite, or John Batchelor, one of these like late night shows that have been around forever that I've always listened to. And I get sucked into these. I don't know if you get sucked into these like podcasts that are like science fiction and they have like 100 episodes, like the Leviathan Chronicles or something like that. Like there's all these like cool things out there that I love that are storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, my latest guilty pleasure is listening to Reddit glitch stories online. I know.
Interesting. I didn't know those existed.
Well, that's
What's a Reddit glitch?
A glitch, like a glitch in the matrix, like something happens that's out of sorts, people, experiencing time slips or meeting their other selves. It's really crazy.
I was listening to I don't know if you heard of Tim Pool, but I was listening to them talking about this the other day, and they were saying that like if you look at reality, the reason people see ghosts is because reality is stacked upon reality that's stacked upon reality. It's kind of like Stranger Things, and that's why you see ghosts. So like, yes, I can get sucked into that too.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about it is it's people taking what has been put out into the common world, Reddit stories, and they're reading them. And that's how they're doing their show. So I think that kind of goes back to what's the content of my show? What am I doing? What am I talking about? It can be so many different things because of the way that technology is set up today. We have so many options.
The plan for a show I have one day, Desiree, and at some point in time I'm going to do this, is I read my spam emails. It's one day I'm going to make a podcast where I read my spam emails because I get some good ones. Let me tell you.
I love that. I love that. And people would listen to it. And you know why they listen to it? And I think this goes back to the core. It's that connectivity, right?
Yeah.
We want to feel connected to others. We want to know somebody else is experiencing the same thing. I love that idea. You got to. I'm
going to call it Tales from the Spam Box because I get some really, really good ones. Like, hello, I am a former African king, and you don't know this, but you and I are related. And I'm going to give you $7 million. You just have to give me your social security number, bank routing information, and I will transfer it to you. You only have to give me back a certain amount. Oh, I'm in. Yes.
I know. Fun fact, way back in the day when the Nigerian email scam was just starting, probably in the early 2000s, I know a gentleman who sent one of his employees in a plane to Nigeria. Yeah. He told me all about it. I was like, how could you do that? But in the early days, people didn't understand necessarily what was going on. It's just hilarious.
Oh,
you have to do that though, Jeremy. I love that idea. I think that's brilliant.
It'll be like Tales from the Crypt, except I won't be weird looking and have that hair and everything. Do you remember Tales from the Crypt? The guy with the terrible like hair and
the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Okay. We're running against the clock. Tell people where they can go to find you online, your podcast. Give us all your details.
Yeah, so they can find me over at jeremyryanslate.com. I only use my middle name because my parents named me after an actor, and it became very hard to find me for a few years, and now it's not so hard. So jeremyryanslate.com or commandyourbrand.com if they want to find anything over there.
Perfect. And your book is on Amazon and all the usual
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, just about anywhere you can think.
Love it. When you get done with that second edition project that they're doing, will you come back on the show and talk to us again?
Absolutely. And I'll be on time next time.
All right. Love it. Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us today on the Books That Make You show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You bet. And thank you everybody for listening and watching today to the Books That Make You show. You can find us at booksthatmakeyou.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, we're on TikTok and YouTube. Don't forget, ring the bell, subscribe, make some comments. Please show us some love. And until next time, all of my bookish buddies. Please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.